everyone. I'm so excited to be here. As a Leeds alumni, it is actually quite surreal coming back. And it's only been 3 years, but I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the Parkinson building, everything, there's the Brotherton. So yeah, it's been great so far. And this is actually, the first time I've been back since I graduated in 2016. And I think a lot has changed, but I'm going to look around afterwards. So yeah, as a little bit of an introduction to me, I am a talent manager at Gleam Futures. So I manage Grace Beverley, and I have done for the last 2.5 years. So as part of that, I kind of manage her strategy as part of her personal brand, but also I helped conceptualize Tala, which is what I'll be running you through today. The launch of Tala was probably one of the most stressful times of my life. So if you see me pulling any hair out, that is why. So yeah, I'd also just like to say she's absolutely gutted she can't make it, and she will hope to come and see you guys again soon. Today I'm going to take you through the process of building Tala from conception to launch, and with the hope that you guys can have a better understanding of what we're all about, who we are, and kind of what the future holds for us. So for those of you that don't know, Tala is a sustainable style brand that I built alongside Grace Beverley. Why did we choose to develop Tala? One of the main reasons is that we needed to. There is no room for unsustainable and unethical brands in 2020, and we wanted to pave the way for bigger brands with bigger profit margins to realise that actually sustainable fashion is possible and that they can follow suit. So out of interest, how many items do you guys think are sent to landfill in the UK each week? Any guesses? Can I have an approximate guess? Anyone? Too many. Yeah, too many. So 11 million garments are sent to landfill in the UK alone each week. So we wanted to give the consumer the option to be able to wear that landfill, essentially, rather than leave it rotting away. So that's one of the main reasons we decided to build Tala. And the second reason is that there was a gap in the market for a brand that is affordable, on trend, and sustainable together. So we found doing our market research that there were brands that were sustainable, yes. They might be 100% sustainable for a pair of leggings, but they're not necessarily on trend or affordable because they might be £100. And we wanted to bridge the gap and bring down the cost price, so we could kind of give that option to people who want it, or ultimately people who just want a cool pair of leggings, and then great, it happens to be that they've made out of recycled yarn. We also found when doing our market research that companies that were kind of offering a sustainable option weren't being entirely transparent with their marketing and comms. So they'd say something along the lines of a percentage of recycled plastics used. Well, what does that really mean? Does that mean 1%? Or does that mean 2%? Or does that mean 100%? And we wanted to basically give the power to the consumer in the sense that they can see exactly what they're buying. So it's 92% recycled materials. And at first we were pushing for 100%. Apparently that's not possible because of the elasticity that you need in leggings, but fingers crossed we'll eventually get there. And then finally, diversity. So all we could kind of see in marketing campaigns was that there was kind of tokenistic diversity going on, but we wanted to bring diversity into all of our ad campaigns and across all of our marketing and comms. So people could essentially just see what the products were that they were buying and see themselves in them, for no other reason than that, really. So who did we choose to partner with and why? So we decided to partner with our two main factories for two main reasons, and that is sustainability and ethics. So the factory group that we work with has invested 20 million euros into the development of high quality recycled yarn. And this allows us to be really kind of quick and innovative with the products that we're making. So before we launched, we had to push back our launch slightly because we had some of our products or hoodies made in a recycled yarn, which was cozy and really lovely, but we found one which was amazing. And we were like, halt everything, this is a new material, let's go ahead with it. And it was such an exciting moment for us because it felt like we were really on the cusp of kind of sustainable fashion and innovation in that sense. And it's our factories that allow us to do that. And then ethics. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. We wanted to offer ethical wages and working conditions for the women and staff that work for us. And we needed accreditations to prove it. So what are we all about, and what is our brand identity? Before launch, we ran workshops and lots of brainstorms to kind of have total clarity on who we were and what we were about. So that literally ranges from our tone of voice, our aesthetic, our literally anything that defines us, everything that we post on our page, the way we talk about our products. So we spoke to kind of lots of Gen Z and millennials and asked what they're looking for in a brand. What is it that's missing? And off the back of that, we formed a brand Bible, and that now informs pretty much everything that goes out with Tala's name on it. And I'm only going to take you through the top 2 of our USPs because I just feel like the others are quite self-explanatory. And the first one I want to look at is sustainability, because in my opinion, this is a really hard one to convey, because what is sustainability and who are we comparing it to, or what, like compared to who or what? So we didn't want to be, like I say, another brand that claims just a percentage of ocean plastics used or whatever it might be. So we needed to be really careful about how we approached this, because ultimately us even existing does impact the environment. So what did we do? We brought in a sustainability expert to research each individual garment and come up with marketing claims like this. This pair of leggings saves over 40 litres of water and 2 kilograms of CO2 compared with non-upcycled polyamide. And we got each statement checked by advertising lawyers and to ensure they were compliant and truthful. And we used these statements across all of our comms to promote the products. And this is actually a process I'm really proud of for 2 main reasons. It fills the gap in the market for, like I was saying, a sustainable on-trend activewear brand. And it also sets us up from some really exciting statements down the line. So when we've sold 100,000 pairs of leggings, we will be able to say from our leggings alone, we have saved over 4 million litres of water and 200,000 kilograms of CO2 from being released into the environment. And that is along with our customer, because ultimately the customer choosing to buy our leggings over the top of their non-recycled equivalents is what makes that happen. And next, I want to talk about how we stay on trend as a slow fashion brand. Based on market research, these are our 2 audiences for Tala. And yes, I did make up those cringy names. Got to be all markety. The first is the quality seeker. So she is potentially slightly more millennial. She's looking more for our kind of neutral offering, and she is looking for activewear that she can wear primarily in the gym, but potentially to brunch. And then we have the trendsetter, who is potentially our more Gen Z Tala girl. She is more fashion forward. She likes to style up the pieces in her own individual way, and she doesn't necessarily just wear it to the gym. She might wear it to festivals or out and about or out on a night out. And we use the trendsetter to stay on trend as a slow fashion brand by kind of looking advanced into what she might want in the future. And a good example of this is our Flare collection. So Flare was our more daring collection that we launched in August of 2019. And we knew at the time that Gen Z is willing to spend 10 to 15% more on a sustainable option. And we knew at the same time that she's going to be searching for that festival option that ultimately Pretty Little Thing is going to bring out, and we wanted her to choose us rather than them. So all content was shot with trendsetter talent in a more urban, kind of edgy environment. That makes me sound so old saying that. Alongside other fast fashion brands. And from that perspective, the collection was a real success, because really the point of this collection was to say to the world, actually, we may be a slow fashion brand and it may take us 8 months to bring out a product, whereas it takes the fast fashion brands 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But we're going to work in advance, and we are going to bring you these options, these on-trend options for when you'd need them. And next, I want to look at our results, May to Jan 2020. So above is a snapshot of our results from May to Jan 2020. And I'm not going to run you through all of these because it would take a lot of time, but I'm going to pull out my two favourites. As most of mine and Grace's experience is primarily in digital and building digital brands, Instagram is our primary marketing tool. So using a mix of cross-promotion via Grace's YouTube and Instagram to make everyone aware of our messaging and USPs, clear tone of voice and brand messaging, targeted gifting for other talent who have similar interests and followings with a similar interest, events, and following Instagram's best practice. We managed to grow from 0 to 100,000 followers within 1 week of launch. And my favourite one, we managed to get a higher engagement rate on Instagram than Nike, Lululemon, Sweaty Betty and Gymshark added together, which makes me feel very excited for the future. What does the future look like? Ultimately, it is important for a sustainable brand to work far ahead and innovate to compete with the market. We need to be planning, like I said, collections 8 to 12 months in advance, really, in order to kind of compete with the market. And we have collections planned for the next 12 months, but I'd also love to hear your thoughts about what you think we should be kind of planning and innovating and doing next. Obviously, I can't tell you in detail about our plans for the future, but really the main focus for us in 2020 is going to be about building our team. It's a blessing and a curse in the sense that we grew very quickly. In the first week of launch, it was me and Grace kind of on customer service thinking, oh God, this is much bigger than we were expecting it to be. And then we kind of went on a hiring frenzy. So we essentially need to get all the infrastructure in place to manage the demand. So a huge focus for us this year is hiring. And then we've also hired a publicist. So another focus, which I think the publicist out-of-home paid media options sit in together, is reaching new non-Grace Beverley audiences, because ultimately we want to reach other people who also want to vote with their money and tell the bigger brands that actually sustainable fashion is something we want. So using a publicist to kind of get press in more traditional media outlets, so things like OK Mag or Stylist Magazine, all of which we've already kind of had coverage in, which is really exciting. And also looking at out-of-home and paid media options. So out-of-home, for those of you that aren't aware of the jargon, essentially means billboard advertising or advertising on the tube. So we'd love by the end of Q4, so quarter four, end of the year, to have had our own billboard. And then paid media options. So we've started foraying into this, but essentially it's a case of putting media spend into digital platforms in order to reach a larger audience of people who are likely to engage with the brand, might have looked at other sustainable brands before, might have looked at Grace before, and we feel would kind of connect. Okay, so I totally appreciate that was a whistle-stop tour. Please do write down any questions that you have, and I believe you'll have the chance to answer them after the Q&A. Is that right?
So going back to your studies at Leeds as an undergrad, how did you find the shift from being a Leeds grad to entering full-time employment? So what did that process look like?
So I firstly worked at a marketing agency in Leeds because I wasn't quite ready to leave yet. And all of my friends had done a year in industry/year abroad, so loads of them were still living in Leeds. So I was able to kind of hold on to that student life just 1 year more, which I loved. I didn't find the transition from moving as a student into the 9 to 5 difficult at all. I really enjoyed kind of the routine of it. As an English and theatre student, you have about... Does anyone here do English and theatre? Oh, it's a really small course. There's like 30 people on it or something ridiculous. But yeah, it's as an English and theatre student, you had like 2 hours contact time a week or something. So I really enjoyed kind of having that 9 to 5, getting something to like kind of really get my teeth into. So yeah, I didn't find it difficult. And then I then got my job at Gleam. So it was 12 months after, and I moved down to London, and yeah, all my friends also moved down to London, so it wasn't lonely at all. And had a real passion for the industry and I loved my job and I literally look forward to getting in every morning. So I didn't find it difficult.
Okay. As you said, working at Gleam, you work to manage individuals, and a lot of those individuals you manage are female entrepreneurs. Do you think there's a difference in how female influencers and entrepreneurs are perceived in the media? And is there a difference in how you have to manage them compared to perhaps a male counterpart?
So I guess that question's in two parts. Do I find it a difference in how I manage them? No, I don't. It's a difference in how you manage personality. So Grace and I have a very close friendship. So that kind of, when I call her about work, often we'll start talking about our life. Whereas some of the male talent I manage is more professional. We're friends, we're really good friends, but we're not friends in the same way that two young girls are.
Sure.
So I guess it's different in that sense. And then in how they're spoken about in the media, no, I don't think there's a difference about how they're spoken about generally. The media often are quite willing to tear people down, whether they're male or female, and I've kind of seen that across the board. But one thing that I do find is that when we're kind of speaking to journalists about Grace working in business or women working in business, or some journalists, not all, are very quick to kind of focus on appearance or what Grace is wearing. And I think that's something that we need to be really conscious of. And I don't think it's the fault of the journalist by any means. I actually think it's a culture problem. And I'm kind of hoping that if any of you are hoping to be journalists, you'll be very well aware of that. And I do feel like it's going to kind of stop happening in the future as kind of the younger generations start getting into the workplace.
Okay, and talking about the culture and that you mentioned, and as you showed earlier with the diversity we've seen in Tala campaigns with plus-size models and models of different ethnicities, how can Gleam Futures, your clients and companies overall, do you think take the first step to act responsibly and ensure that females are represented properly and just equally?
Yeah, I mean, the diversity one is a really weird one for Grace and I, because actually we were just like, it was a natural thing. Like we just wanted people to be able to look at themselves and be like, oh, that's what I'd look like wearing it, whether they're really tall or they have massive boobs or whatever it might be, like ethnicity, disability. We just wanted to, across all of our comms, for people to be able to see themselves. And it actually was almost a bit sad how much the press picked up on it, because it just shows how much change there needs to be, and that's why it became one of our USPs, because it really was something that people loved about the brand, which I thought was quite sad. And the other part of the question was what do you think is how can we first advocate this change, like to change the current culture? So like what are the first steps that needs to be taken by businesses? I think firstly, so with brands, it's not difficult. Choose a diverse range of models for your campaigns. That's not difficult. But with kind of jobs and taking on jobs, you'd be surprised how many jobs we have to turn down for Grace, because like recently we were asked for her to sit on a panel about diversity. So I was like, oh, who are the other panelists? And she was like, they're all white people. And Grace was like, we were like, Grace can't sit on a panel about diversity as a white woman and feel comfortable with that. So it's feeling okay saying no and explaining to people why you're saying no, and hoping that kind of off the back of that change will happen.
Okay. And back to the 2020 plan of expanding the team, you said, because it grew very quickly from 2 of you to many more. So what does the process look like of just generally expanding what's a small brand into the large scale it's become?
That's a big question. So hiring the right people is massive. The hours that we put behind Tala as a small team are often going above and beyond. So we need to find people who ultimately love it and are happy to do that. So yeah, hiring the right people, and also hiring people that genuinely care about the things that we are trying to kind of put forward and make happen. So that's kind of a really key part of it. And just making sure you're kind of assessing everything. So there's lots of stuff that we know as a brand that we need to work on, and we definitely don't think we're perfect. So sitting down as a team and looking at those things, and that is what we do every week. Look at all our imperfections and we're like, how can we change these? I mean, we're doing a lot of good stuff, but it's also impossible to be perfect.
So when Tala became big and when you launched, how did you manage to get the initial seed funding, considering it was founded by a recent graduate with no previous business experience? So what was the process of just getting funding with limited credibility in the business world?
I mean, to be totally transparent, Grace at that point had a fair bit of business experience. So obviously she built her own brand, which I believe is, a really good cater of the fact that she's business-minded. And when I say her own brand, I mean her kind of personal Grace Beverley brand. And also she had launched BND. At that time it was Grace Fit Guide. And she was selling thousands of resistance bands each week. So we were in a really good position to kind of go out to potential suppliers. Also, we had lots of Gleams contacts. So it made the process a lot easier kind of having Grace's experience.
Okay. So what advice would you give to students who are looking to gain funding for some sort of business, or how can they gain support without the sort of networks that Grace may have already had?
I think knowing your USP and knowing your product inside out helps, because we certainly had that absolutely nailed when we started trying to find partners. And the reason being is that we needed them to be aligned with what we wanted to do. Because it does take a lot of extra work and they needed to be on board with that. So knowing your product, knowing what sets you apart and knowing it inside out.
Okay. We have a question from Charlotte from the floor, who said, do you think people are born entrepreneurial, or do you think that entrepreneurship is a discipline that can be learned by anyone? It's a tough question.
I actually don't think it's either. I think every entrepreneur that I know has a massive amount of passion. And obviously Grace has a huge amount of passion. I'm sure all of you have seen that. But also Dom Smales, the CEO of Gleam Futures, which is where I work. He started Gleam Futures 10 years ago when he kind of spotted that he's essentially a pioneer in the influencer marketing space. He spotted, actually, these YouTubers, so Pixie Woo, who are kind of like the original YouTubers, he was like, they're getting better views and engagement than like any traditional media outlet, which brands are paying lots of money to be featured on. And then he kind of built Gleam from that point. And when he talks about Gleam and influencer marketing and everything, he's so passionate about it. And I think it's passion that gets you through. And yeah, really loving your product and loving your work.
What do you think is the key to maintaining authenticity when working with and when managing the clients you work with? Would you say for Grace it's the USP of her business? Or would you say it's the USP of each of the individuals? Or is there another influencing factor?
So what's the best way to manage them?
Or what makes them all unique?
Okay.
And authentic?
So managing authenticity, again, I guess that is a case of knowing when to say no. So Grace, we turn down so many things because they're just not right and they just don't suit her. Like, we sometimes have fast fashion brands come to us and say, oh, will Grace sit on our podcast? Will Grace come to our event? And we're like, do you know Grace? Like, this won't work. So feeling okay saying no. I just turned down all those things without even speaking to Grace because there's no point. And yeah, knowing you, knowing what you're all about, knowing yourself and what you stand for, and then only picking up the jobs that are right and fit with you ethically and morally.
Okay. Typically, I think a conception is that most influencers are female. Why would you say this is? Or is that a misconception, perhaps?
I don't know on that, because I think potentially, I mean, most of the influencers I follow are female, but I think that might be a bit of an echo chamber thing, because I follow girls who are like me, who kind of have similar interests, who I engage with. But actually, if I was a male gamer, maybe I'd think that more influencers were men. And ultimately, like, I work in the industry and I work with lots of really successful male influencers who have kind of built brands off the back of their success, published books, and kind of offer really good options for brands in terms of branded content. So I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, I wonder if it's a bit of kind of who you follow is who you
see on your feed. And,
yeah.
With the gender payback being so topical at the moment, because the university is currently on strike, disputing that, and obviously Grace has spoken about there being increased transparency with salaries in the influencer industry. So how do you manage to negotiate and ensure that everyone's getting a fair deal? And how can we advocate for more transparency overall?
That's a big question.
Another long question.
So with the influencer world, it's a bit different just because obviously I negotiate salaries and deals regularly, and I negotiate salaries and deals on behalf of men and women. And it's a bit different because salaries are kind of based on, but fees are kind of based on talent potency, their profile, how engaged their audience is, the brand fit. So it's not necessarily kind of, I've got 100,000 followers, you've got 100,000 followers, so I should be paid exactly the same amount as you, because actually I might have far worse engagement than you. And nobody might know who I am compared to you, who's sitting in, who's had the cover on Women's Health and, is regularly got a regular column in Stylist magazine. So it's difficult to kind of compare men and women like for like in that sense, in the same way that you might be able to if you both did the same job at an agency. And then in terms of how to negotiate fair deals, I would give a tip to always, in terms of negotiating, always make sure that they put their cards on the table first, because if they say more than what you wanted, then great, you say, yeah, perfect. And if they say less, then you tell them really transparently, actually, I'm worth more. This is kind of the level that I was expecting and hoping to be paid. And then hopefully you can kind of find some kind of flex in the middle.
Okay. Back to Tala a bit, and you're managing clients on a day-to-day basis. So what does your day-to-day look like at Gleam Futures?
Oh, that is... it literally just never looks like one thing. I do different things every single day, which is one of the things I love about my job, because I'll be kind of with different clients, or I'll be working on strategies. So yeah, I can't really give you a specific thing. Often I go to shoots, I might be going to press interviews with the talent that I'm working with, I might be kind of providing pitches to brands. Yeah, it really, really varies. That's kind of one of the great things that everyone at Gleam says about the job.
Where sort of a career path trajectory, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? What's the dream?
Oh, I guess I would like to think that by that point Tala will be much bigger, and will have reached a lot more people, and I'll kind of be leading the strategy of a bigger brand at that point, which would be really exciting for me, and again managing the career of Grace and kind of her profile. I see them growing significantly over the next 5 years, so being part of that is kind of absolutely integral to something that I want to do.
Yeah, obviously here we do have an array of female undergraduates who are all hoping to be extremely successful in their careers. So what advice would you give to your younger self as an undergrad? Or like, what would you have wished to have been told? You're probably going to get imposter syndrome in whatever you do.
So just feel confident and know that what you have to say is valuable, and don't second guess yourself. Because I found, like, at any level, anybody at any level, so even Grace, everyone would look at her and be like, she'd never feel negative or feel imposter syndrome, but it's something she speaks about regularly. So back yourself and know that sometimes you're going to feel a bit out of place, but actually you are valuable, and that's the reason that you're there. So I think the main thing for us is we know and we kind of definitely shout about the fact that the most sustainable option is buying nothing, or reusing, or buying from a charity shop, or picking something from something you already have. But ultimately, people are going to want to buy activewear, and they do need new items occasionally. So it's all about providing that option for when that time does come around for somebody. And then also a really key part of growing, but also kind of being able to maintain sustainability, is what we do with our samples. So we've got, confidential, but a really exciting initiative coming out soon, which I can't say too much about. And just making sure we're not incinerating anything that doesn't go to a loving home, like some brands do. And so that's a key part. What we do with the things that aren't sold is really important to us. So making sure we don't also overbuy units, which is one of the reasons that often we don't have stock. So don't hate us for that yet. We'll find a better solution. But yeah, it's keeping an eye on all of those things. Yeah, it is two jobs. And during the launch of Tala, we actually had no help, so I was just doing it. So that was crazy. Well, me, myself and Grace, obviously. And yeah, I mean, it's all about kind of organising your time, and I have to prioritise very heavily. So at the beginning of each day, I'll write out my to-do list with the top 3 things that I actually need to do, and then at the end of the day, I'll do the same thing. So it's all about just prioritising, and also letting people know and managing expectations that you can't do everything all at once. Yeah, so I had worked at the NSPCC as an intern for a month, and I'd then worked at this. I'd been PRing building companies in Leeds, which was so random, but it was a good bit of extra income, and I kind of did that alongside my 3rd year at Leeds. So I had a small amount of marketing experience, and I wouldn't say kind of I jumped into my dream role, my first role. So please don't put expectations on yourself to do that. It's very kind of likely that your first role won't be the one which you kind of are incredibly passionate about. For me, it was my second role, which was very lucky. But the first role that I did jump into gave me lots of experience to then get a place at Gleam. So yeah, it's all about just building up the experience that you do have, and yeah, being realistic with yourself and not expecting yourself to suddenly have the dream job. As in, so how do I find Grace as a manager? Or she's not my manager, but as in terms of kind of how she manages the business. she's kind of the really sparky, so she'll like randomly send me a voice note at like 3 a.m, like, I've got this idea, we really need to do this right now, and I'm like, Grace, I'm trying to sleep. So that's great, but obviously that's what I mean about the passion thing. So like Dom, the CEO of Gleam, he's very like that, he's kind of really big ideas, really visionary, and it's what kind of gets things done. So yeah, that's what she's like. Very, very big ideas, very visionary, really like thinking about what's coming next. And she's very savvy. She knows herself, and she knows kind of what she wants from the business. Very directive if she is on board with something or not. So that's also really useful. I think that I would struggle to do my job currently anywhere other than London. but the influencer space is very heavily in London. There are, there are bubbles, in Manchester and Brighton and Bristol, but the main hub I do find is in London. That's where kind of most of the brands do their events and everything along those lines. So, but there are opportunities in up north, and I wouldn't say that it's a definite no. But I just couldn't personally find the role that I wanted in Leeds. Otherwise, I likely would have stayed. And then the second part of the question was, do we see Tala moving and expanding into the north? So I think our primary market is the UK, obviously, 60%. 75% of our market is in the UK, but our second market is the US. So I think, firstly, if we were going to open another office, it would be in the US, just so we can kind of be a bit more global. But certainly, if we are kind of looking much further into the future, I'd love to think there would be the need for us to open in Manchester as well. We are really kind of on our brand and tone of voice on Instagram. I like to think that you kind of know what you're going to expect, which is kind of Instagram best practice. We do a lot of work with Instagram about kind of how to best be a brand on Instagram. So we do kind of lots of videos kind of explaining our products and Instagram stories, taking people through features of our products, and that kind of insight is something that people really want and have been found to really engage with, and I think that is one of the things that sets us apart. Also, we were born a digital brand, so we started on Instagram, and that's how we primarily did all of our marketing. So I think that gives us an edge as well. I mean, obviously Gymshark did in a similar way. But yeah, they've now kind of expanded and they're using other media outlets. So I think the fact that we're kind of primarily on Instagram and that's why people know they can find us, that kind of has a benefit to it as well. This is essentially going to sound very basic, but what we did was we literally scoured the internet for brands that were doing a similar thing. And when I say scoured, I mean hours, weeks. And we just couldn't find it. So what we did was we put it into columns of, this is what their packaging offering is, this is what their price offering is, this is what the products look like, this is what their branding is, this is what their tagline is, and we put every single brand that we could even consider nearly a competitor in this long list, and then we ranked them. And we were like, where are we going to sit? And how can we be better? And that is how we did our market research. And then obviously on top of that, there was a lot of, when we have the actual products, we then go out and get everyone to try them on. So that was kind of our initial market research stage. And then kind of ongoing, every product that we bring out, we get everyone to try on. All people of different kind of sizes try on, make sure it's comfortable, make sure that it is supportive, whatever it is that the product needs to do. So that's kind of ongoing what we do. But we like to think that our brand is kind of built by the customer, because a lot of the things we do will be like, if we just post an Instagram story, say we want to get people involved, so we'll say, what colours do you want to see next? And then we will genuinely keep that information and genuinely look at it down the line. So we have another document which kind of stores all that information and we'll look at, so we can bring out products that actually kind of resonate with everyone. So there are a few things that are best practice. So you should be posting every day. And you should ideally be posting more than once a day. And the reason for that is we see so many ads per day. I think it's around 10,000 ads that we see per day, and you just want to swipe past it. So literally just in terms of if you're posting more, your content's more likely to be seen, you should be posting more. Give Instagram exclusives if you can. People are really moving away from kind of curated content where, oh, my feed looks perfect, look how perfect we are. Actually, people want to see the real stuff. People want to see the people behind the brand. They want to see how that product came to be and why it came to be. So build kind of commerce into the narrative on your stories. Also, video is a huge priority for Instagram at the moment. So make sure that you're posting lots of video content. Instagram TFB is their baby. They're really putting a lot of money into it. So use Instagram TV. You'll be favoured by Instagram. And also people like that raw content. Like I'm saying, like it's moving away from the curated. Don't feel as though the Instagram TV has to be really beautifully edited and beautifully shot. Film it on your phone and upload it because it's easier to get it up, and actually people want to see things that are real. Use all of the features. Again, that helps you to kind of, first of all, engage with your audience. So by that I mean things like polls, questions, music, all those things. Use all the features. Not 10,000. I manage someone with 100,000. But one thing I would say about that is, even Gleam specifically, it's not actually your follower number particularly that we're concerned about when we sign someone. What we're looking at is potential. So does this person have an amazing personality? Has this person got amazing morals? Have they got a story to tell? So we actually signed a talent called Katie Pix when she had 10,000 followers. And that was because she was creating amazing food content, and we were like, this is amazing, like people need to see this, and has such an amazing personality, and we think she's going to be great. So we signed her off the back of potential, as opposed to kind of numbers. So that's not kind of a main focus for us.
Back to the Instagram questions. So it does seem like a lot of the digital marketing is centered around Instagram and Instagram videos, stories, polls. But what happens when the shift because obviously now we are seeing a rising trend in the use of Instagram. What happens when that trend falls or it migrates elsewhere? Or do you think the Instagram use is projected just to
so Instagram is projected to build, but ultimately it's about keeping on top of what's happening. So TikTok is a massive thing at the moment. It's huge, and we're jumping onto that because ultimately that's where lots of people are migrating. That's where the young people are, and we need to kind of be on top of that as a brand and kind of make sure that we are watching what's happening in the industry and making sure we're not left behind. I spend a lot of time on social media, but ultimately it's our job and we really are encouraged to. And I see it really differently now. I don't kind of look at it as a consumer in the way that I did previously. I look at it as, oh, they're working with them. That's interesting. It's kind of like, it's my industry and it's what I do. So I find it really interesting, and I don't find it affects me in the way that it might do if I was a consumer, because I'm looking at it slightly differently. And how do I manage my time with kind of staying off it? I do have that timer on my phone, you know, the one which pops up being like, time limit, get off. And that doesn't work. I just click off that. So I'm not very good at it. It's my industry and it's something I love and I really want to kind of be on top of. Also, I want to make sure I know everything that Grace is posting and everything that my other talent are posting. So I know it like the back of my hand. So I don't find it damaging, but maybe I do kind of naturally take time off. I mean, emotionally, the biggest challenge was we'd been but obviously building the brand for over a year actually. And, we'd done our big launch event and everything had gone so well and we were so happy and, we were really like on an emotional high from it all. Like after all the hard work, we told everyone about it. And then we had Launchgate. And I'm not sure if any of you kind of were across that, but essentially we had a big problem with our launch. And me and Grace were and the rest of the team were kind of working as a customer service team because our customer service team wasn't being efficient. And it was kind of just really upsetting because like as a small team we'd been so excited and we'd got to this point and then like we had so much work from there on to kind of fix everything that had kind of gone wrong because of the traffic to the site that we just weren't expecting and couldn't have even kind of anticipated that the traffic was going to be as high as it was. So yeah, that was a real challenge and more emotional challenge. So obviously, every time you write a CV and cover letter, I'm not sure if I'm giving really obvious advice here, so stop me if I am, but I make sure that I really change up everything that's in my even CV to make sure that it's like completely suited to the job. Also say something a bit different. Like in my cover letter to Gleam, I wrote in the subject title of the email, I was like, I'm obsessed with Fashion Mumbler at the moment. She's got two really cute dash-ins. And my manager was like, oh yeah, that really stood out to me. And I was like, when I sent it off, I was like, that's actually so embarrassing, but like I have to do something to stand out. So be aware of the fact they're going to be getting hundreds of applications and like what is there that you can do that's just a bit different, that's going to add some personality. And then when you do get that interview, this is something I've learned so much now after having interviewed lots of people. Just fake it till you make it with the confidence, because that honestly makes such a difference. If someone is confident, and even if they're just behaving like they're confident, because I was like shaking inside and just pretending like I'm so confident here, it makes such a difference. Also, another good tip for interviews is, sounds a bit stalkerish, stalk them on LinkedIn before and like delve deep and look at if there's anything that's kind of like even remotely that you could talk to them about in terms of small talk. So, they might have gone to Leeds University, or they might be near you, or they might have done a course near you, or they might live near you, or they might have done a course similar to yours, and then kind of just drop it into the conversation as though you had no idea that they went to Leeds or whatever it might be. So you're kind of like, oh, where did you go to uni? And then they're like, Leeds. And you're like, oh, I went to Leeds. And then they're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Did you love it? And then you're like, yeah, now you like me. So that's a really good tip. Yeah, so I guess it's all about kind of making sure, so this year, that we grow our team. So, because obviously we're in a good position now in the sense that we have we've got all the kind of infrastructure in place. We're working with the factories who are kind of innovating, and so that gives us a good position. But what we need to do is build our team so we have the people to kind of keep up with these businesses. But we have a lot of the things we need in place. We just need to make sure we have the kind of manpower. And then strategizing and doing what we've done so far, in that we're planning 12 months in advance, because we want to be bringing out things that are cool and new and on trend, and fit with all of our USPs. And I think ultimately the big brands will have to change a lot of things in their kind of structure to match what we're doing. So yeah, it's just a case of kind of building ourselves up and continuing to strategize. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Verity, for coming and speaking. Tell us a bit more about yourself and the brand, Tala, and thank you for all the questions from the floor.